for having me. Good to meet everybody. I'll share a deck here in a sec, and we'll get going. While I'm going through this, if anyone has questions or feels like they want to interrupt, I can't share till you let me. Cool. Can everybody see slide says Kicksaw, Soft, SFDC?
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. All right. See if I can do this live. My name's Kyle. The agenda today, I'm going to talk a little bit about my background. I'll spend some time talking about Salesforce, why you guys as veterans should care, how to break into the ecosystem, and then any questions you got. So a little bit about my background. I grew up in Oregon, a little town, about 6,000 people, served in 2nd Ranger Battalion from 2003 to 2007. Had 3 deployments to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, did kind of the whole 4-year deployment or 4-year enlistment that's pretty common for Rangers. Went to Ranger School in 2004, I think, 2005. After getting out of the military, I went to school at the University of Oregon, studied business with a focus on entrepreneurship. I knew I wanted to work for a venture-backed startup in Silicon Valley, so that's kind of how I got into that. Graduating in kind of the end of the recession, 2009, 2010, it's kind of tough to get jobs, especially with no real background in tech. So I ended up getting an entry-level sales development job at a company called Gigya. It was a fast-growing startup, and I was basically cold calling, setting meetings on behalf of sales reps. And so I knew nothing about Salesforce. I'd never sold anything before. I was like brand new in the job. Over that time frame, I ended up, growing into managing a sales development team. Grew that from about 7 to 75 over about a 2-year period. Hit the upper limit of my management capacity, and then transitioned into running business operations at the company. And at the time, business operations was primarily a tool called Salesforce. So I don't know, by round of applause or show of hands, has anyone ever actually used Salesforce or heard of it? Yeah, okay, we got one.
Heard of it.
Heard of it, that's good enough. So I'll talk about what Salesforce is. I'll spend a bunch of time on it. I don't want to go into too much of it here, but in short, I was responsible for all of the systems that our sales reps use as they're trying to set meetings with. We're selling to companies like Coca-Cola, Verizon, AT&T, blah, 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 trying to sell to heads of marketing. And so we had to figure out who they are, how to sell to them, and then close those deals. And Salesforce is the tool to track all that stuff. So again, I'll get into that more. In 2014, 20-ish, or I guess 2016 or so, I moved to Bend, Oregon. Hope if you haven't been here, I definitely recommend you come visit. I started a company called Kicksaw and another one called SifData, which I'll get into in a bit. I have 2 daughters and a wife and a dog named Keela. So if anyone wants to come out for a hike, come hit me up. But let me check my next slide real quick. Cool. So, my background, I'll focus on a little bit specifically, but, I'd been at Gigya. I was a sales development rep, moved into running business operations, and the head of sales got fired. He got fired and got sent to another company. And I was administering Salesforce, and he calls me, he goes, Kyle, I need help. I don't have anyone to set up Salesforce. And so I helped him out, charged him $50 an hour for nights and weekends to do work. And he told 2 people. They told 2 people, they told 2 people. And before I knew it, I had a consulting firm that was kind of happening that I didn't expect. So I was getting business through that and quit my job to focus on it full time. At the same time, I'd been learning how to code just for my job. I thought that it would be valuable doing operation stuff. And so I started a company called SifData, which is some software that ties in Salesforce and LinkedIn. So a little bit about my background, who I am and how I got to where I am is not so important. I'll focus more on, Salesforce. So Salesforce, if anyone has ever heard of it, we got one person that has, it's a customer relationship manager, which isn't all that sexy. In short, if you were to start a business today, let's say you want to start a business fixing cars. You help your friends and family that live around you, they come to you, you fix their car, they cut you a check for $500 and you call it a day. No problem, people do it all the time. What if they told 10 people and they all showed up and wanted you to fix their car? You'd have to hire a mechanic, you might need to hire a sales rep. How do you keep track of invoices? How do you keep track of who your customers are? Sending them notes on Christmas or, thanks for, recommending a customer. All that information is typically tracked in spreadsheets or it's written down. And that's what companies did for all of history until Salesforce really came around in around 2000. there was a time frame where companies like Oracle would create these databases you would put in your office that your team would log into to literally track deals and customers and leads and all that stuff. And it's a huge nightmare. Salesforce has gone a different direction where they offer software you can log into on your browser and it helps you track all of your accounts. So at Gigya, I was selling to Nike, Coca-Cola, Adidas, Google, Facebook, whoever. Those were accounts in the system. If I didn't have this information, or let's frame it a different way, I had 75 people with all different accounts and I wanted to make sure that there was no overlap. I need a system to track all that, and spreadsheets are just an inefficient way to do it. You can't really scale. So Salesforce helps you structure all that data, but then you've got to think beyond just an account. We've got the people that work there. Those are contacts or those are leads. Then you've got all the sales information about a given deal. That's called an opportunity. What products did I sell them? That's tied in there. And it gets pretty complex. As a business owner, you want to report on what's our pipeline look like? What products are being sold? What products are not being sold? Who are our crappiest sales reps? How much inventory do we have, right? There's all these questions that I need to be able to answer at any given moment. And typically, if you'd have to go to your inventory guy or gal and ask how much inventory you have, it's just inefficient. Salesforce is geared to solve for that. You know, thinking about how a company like a startup would use Salesforce, if you start a company tomorrow, you go get a round of funding, you start, having folks, you're fixing their trucks, using that as an example. You're going to get to a certain point where spreadsheets just aren't going to do it. You're going to need to move into a proper tool that's called a customer relationship manager. There's a bunch of them out there. Salesforce owns like 75% of the market. They're the biggest one out there. They've got the tallest building in San Francisco. They're huge. If you're a company like Nike, let's pretend you're a sales rep there. You're selling to Foot Locker. I got a $10 million deal that I'm going to close for 20 million pairs of shoes. That's got to get tracked. We have to invoice them. We got to ship product. We got to do all that. Salesforce also offers tools for companies like Elite Meat. Nonprofits need to track who are our donors. How much have they given to us lately? What's their address so I can send them a handwritten note? What companies do they work at so I could work with them on partnerships, right? So there's a lot of use cases for Salesforce because they initially started with leads and contacts and accounts, but what they're trying to do is build a framework so that any company could solve any problem in their CRM. They're getting into inventory, customer portals, right? I want a customer to log in and submit a ticket so I can help solve their problems. What about receiving credit card payments, right? All these things tie into businesses' needs. So Salesforce is really trying to solve those things. They've built their product in a way that like anyone can really come in and administer it, but it's pretty complex. It's not obvious. It's not intuitive. And so I think that that's where, why veterans should care about why Salesforce is such a big player is that there's a real lack of talent in the Salesforce ecosystem. So Salesforce is the largest CRM. They have all the largest customers. Amazon is their customer, right? Everyone uses Salesforce, and there's a complete lack of talent in the ecosystem. So Salesforce is recognizing this. They know they need talented administrators, technical experts, project managers, strategists to work in the ecosystem. So they're really trying to help support veterans and selfishly help themselves because they need more talent. They're offering free certifications for life to veterans and their spouses. So if you were looking to break into Salesforce, we'll get into that in a sec, but they're estimating there are going to be 4.2 million jobs by 2024 in the Salesforce ecosystem. For my company, Kicksaw, 3 years ago, it was me and a buddy with a laptop. Now we've got 44 full-time employees throughout the US and Canada. Like we're growing hand over fist. It's a huge market that is getting bigger every single day. So Salesforce, with Salesforce Military, like I said, they offer free certifications. These things run from $2,500 up to like $5,000 each. They'll give you a free token to do it as many times as you need. Like I said, your spouse is totally eligible for this as well. And right now, if you do a quick search for Salesforce Administrator, there are 9,000 open positions in the US. So there's a ton of demand here. There's just not enough supply. So, they are offering a product called Salesforce Military for you guys to go in and be able to sign up and basically work through what they call trailheads. So they'll give you the absolute basic beginner primer on Salesforce and work you through until you're an experienced architect of Salesforce. So at the company I run, we've got, I'll talk about this here in a sec, but we brought in people who had almost no experience, and they're some of the most credentialed Salesforce experts in the ecosystem in just a couple of years. It's something you can absolutely ramp up on. You don't need to know how to code. It's certainly not an expectation. You can start with basically the ability to use an Excel spreadsheet. If you can do that, you can figure out Salesforce for sure. So the process, if you want to break into it, is just go to Google Trailhead Military for Salesforce, go through a couple of trailheads, get some certifications, and you can apply for jobs. You know, the impact to us as a company has been dramatic. 15% of our company are veterans. We try to hire them wherever we can. Selfishly, it's so that we can get our certifications for free among our team. So, you know, Kicksaw, we're a partner with Salesforce. So we do implementations. And the way to think about it is, I'm a Salesforce sales rep. I've got a company like Nike who wants to buy Salesforce. They may not have internal talent to be able to administer Salesforce, and that'll impact our deal. So companies like Kicksaw, Accenture, Capgemini, Deloitte have a team of Salesforce experts who will come in and help you think about how to solve for this and grow. And so what Salesforce thinks about is which partners have a lot of certifications, how many are hiring veterans, how many are talented in this space that I have a customer looking to buy from me for. So for us at Kicksaw, because we hire veterans, I'm a veteran myself, we've gotten a ton of deals out of this. So early in right as the pandemic was kicking off, we partnered with Salesforce, and one of their fastest growing divisions, as you wouldn't be surprised, was health life sciences. We didn't know anything about it. So Salesforce kicked us a new company that had called Ventec, who manufactured, of all things, ventilators. So they, back in March of 2020, were growing about 1,000% per month, and they didn't have any ability to administer Salesforce. So this is going to be one of Salesforce's fastest growing companies. They didn't have anyone to help support. So Kicksaw, we came in, we helped them basically think through the problem and grow. And Salesforce saw a ton of success. They saw that we supported veterans, and all they've done is just continue to kick us business. So we've been really fortunate in the ecosystem. I mean, there are nearly 2,000 consulting firms that are partners with Salesforce today. So there's not only a ton of need from consultants, but internally, there are companies that, like, most companies want to hire their own talent internally, but there's a limit to how much you can get, how much experience people have. So in short, this is a massive ecosystem that is like dying for talent. And so, you know, I think the special operations community is a totally underrepresented community in the space. So like, I was in the Rangers. I know one other guy in the Rangers who's in tech, just a handful of others here and there. Like, there's just not any representation. And it's a huge bummer in my mind. Like, I think there is so much opportunity for folks coming out of the military. I know it's confusing, right? You get out of the military, you're like, how do I start to apply my life into the civilian sector? How do I get a job in the private sector? What are they looking for, right? I know how to boot down doors and jump out of helicopters, but like, how do I get a job in tech? One of the simplest paths forward, I think, is to tie into an ecosystem like Salesforce, get a bunch of free certifications for life, and companies will be beating down their door to hire you. So, you know, Salesforce experts at our company are getting paid $90,000 to $200,000 a year to work remotely on projects all day long. So we're paying top dollar for really talented people who had no technical expertise prior to this. So folks have just transitioned out, got a handful of certifications, we gave them a job and give them projects to do. So, you know, thinking about Salesforce as like, is that a job I want to do? Is this really any fun? You know, the way I think about it is that it's not so much that you're configuring a CRM. We're lucky in that we get to think of it as we get to solve problems on behalf of our customers. It's just problem solving all day long. We're taking people who are used to working in opaque environments with unclear expectations, finding a path forward, breaking it down into simple solutions and executing, right? Prioritize and execute. And that for us has been, you know, leaning into the experience I have in the military has really helped us stand out, because most of the large consulting partners tend to be, you know, kind of stodgy. Deloitte, they've been around for 100 years. They do a million types of consulting programs. Salesforce is not their expertise. We're a company that's come in and kind of changed the way consulting is done by applying a lot of the special operations like tactics that we use into a business setting. And it's really helped us stand out. And I think that most consulting partners are looking for talented people like this. Selfishly, I'd love for you to come work at Kicksaw, but if I can help veterans get into the ecosystem generally, I want to support that for sure. So you know, I ran through this a little faster than I wanted to. There's a ton of stuff I'll probably want to jump back into as it kind of comes back to mind, but I want to stop gabbing and let folks ask questions because there's, I'm sure, a lot of stuff I glossed over.
I'm going to ask a question because I have a wee bit of insider knowledge on Salesforce. So
Sure.
I know they're really doing a big push to expand into the DoD realm.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
What?
Yeah, tell me more.
I'm on the marketing team for that, for my PR agency. That's how come I know this information. So I guess you may not know. The next question is, or the answer to the next question is, are they, I know they're recruiting military, and as they're expanding into the DoD segment, are they looking to bring in people for that, because that's where they're super short on DoD knowledge? And if you're not aware, then you may not know, then they may not be trying to recruit specifically for that across the board, which is good to hear.
Yeah, what I would say about that kind of concept is that Salesforce and every other company are looking for a few things. One is, you know, folks who have security clearances are like fast track to plenty of roles, right? The security clearance itself is worth a lot of money. Whether or not you're any good at what you do, the fact that you have one is kind of a 1 or a 0. So having that box checked is like a shortcut to getting into certain types of businesses. Salesforce is going to be looking for, you know, they want to get beyond tech companies. They want to get beyond these big, massive organizations. They want to get into government contracts. There's so much money involved. So they're only going to want to pull in talent from the military who understand that ecosystem, who have helped procure things within the military, that understand how that works. So I can only imagine that's a massive growth opportunity for Salesforce. So Salesforce, if you wanted to work there, is hiring as many people as they possibly can. They're growing hand over fist. And outside of Salesforce, the ecosystem is huge because, you know, think of Salesforce this way. They don't want to build every product and feature that may exist. They don't want to build a dialer. They don't want to build data enrichment. They build a platform upon which companies build products. So think of like the iPhone, right? Apple doesn't build every app that's out there. They built the phone, and companies build apps on top of it. And Apple takes a cut, just like Salesforce. So Salesforce wants to be the platform upon which companies exist. And there are thousands of companies who only exist because Salesforce does. They build their product natively into it. So there's tons of demand in this ecosystem, and it's huge and growing every day. So Salesforce, like I said, is the biggest player. They're bigger than Oracle, bigger than any of these other massive CRM. And they're expanding beyond just sales stuff. They're creating a cloud for vaccines and nonprofits and health, and they're getting into every sector possible. So yeah, maybe I don't want to work with tech companies, or maybe I don't want to do that, but like Salesforce as a platform is designed to not just solve a sales rep's problem, it's designed to solve any business's problem. It can be extended out to do that.
A quick question. What is the saturation point for this type of software? Do you know what that point is right now for either US economy, North American, or global? You know, at some point, like the software, the home computing, at some point you hit this max capacity where it just became a replacement or exchange for what somebody else was having. Do you know where they might be at on that ramp? Are they still at like 20% saturation, 50%, or?
Yeah, meaning like, have all the companies already adopted Salesforce? There's no new business for them to grow. I can tell you they've got thousands of sales reps at Salesforce. So that should be impactful, who all have pretty aggressive quotas. So, you know, one of the worst territories you can have as a Salesforce sales rep is actually Bay Area tech companies, because they've all bought Salesforce already, or they picked a competitor and will never switch. But you got to figure every auto mechanic, every hotel, every whatever business you can think of is using some old stodgy system that doesn't work well. Salesforce is aggressively trying to appeal to those folks. So like they penetrated 60% of the people who bought CRMs, but there's this massive market of people who've never even considered a CRM that are growing every single day. So like, to put in context, we're not the biggest partner of Salesforce. We're in the top 12, 15 in terms of how aggressively we're growing. And Salesforce is kicking us more deals than we can possibly handle. We have to like tell them to stop because we were taking on too much business through them. So we partnered with them, and their sales reps kick us new business. So like, it feels never ending. And that's not even taking into consideration international stuff. They've hardly got exposure into Europe, Africa, Asia. Like those are just totally untapped markets. So Salesforce is going to continue to be like a dominant player in the space for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Kyle, I have a question. When
Sure.
you're working with a company, is it more so they're like, hey, this is what we want to do. Can you like implement it for us? Or is it like you work with the company to understand how they function and then tell them, hey, this is what Salesforce can do for you? Or is it just a mix?
It's a huge mix. So some companies come to us and they're like, we need to tie Salesforce into NetSuite. This is how we want it to work, but we just don't have the technical people to solve it. We're like, great, we've done this 100 times. This is how you pull the levers to get that done. Sometimes companies are like, we just took on $50 million in funding. We know we need to sell efficiently. We don't even know where to start. Help us think through that. So we get to take, we use the term SOP all the time. Like, let's use the SOP for this and apply it to that company and ignore this one because it doesn't work here. So, we sit down with customers. We try to be very consultative with them. We try to say, what are your biggest problems in your business? What are you looking to accomplish? What aspects of that can Salesforce solve? What things will Salesforce not solve? And be very clear about that. You may need to procure other tools. Salesforce doesn't do everything that's available. And so we help guide and coach them through that process. We think of ourselves as a turnkey operations team, right? So if you took on that 50 million in funding, you got to go hire a Salesforce admin, an operations person, a developer. It's a lot of money. It's hard to do. It's hard to find good people. We just come in, we've got a whole team of people who do those things. So most companies don't have a clue. They think that they're going to go point and click and set up Salesforce, and they can do it, but they oftentimes paint themselves into corners. That's why Salesforce expertise is so critical, because Salesforce, it's this weird kind of conundrum where the bar to actually administer Salesforce is really low. They made it simple. It's all point and click. They use that term all the time. A person with no experience can go do it. The problem is a person with no experience can go do it. So they paint themselves into corners with terrible ideas. And if you think of, if you're building a house and you put the corner of the foundation in the wrong spot, the rest of your house is going to have a problem, right? Like, companies make bad decisions early on in their life cycle, and that impacts them in how quickly they can grow, how quickly they can hire, how quickly they can sell. You just make some bad decisions. So we're helping companies make better decisions about that so they can grow more aggressively. Trying to, anyways.
So Kyle,
go ahead.
I just wanted to provide another data point. My company uses Salesforce as a R&D company that does a mix of DARPA and DoD work. But question for you in terms of how should someone think about relative fit if you think about doing Salesforce at a company like yours, kind of the boutique consulting mode, organic inside Salesforce as a company, or organic inside a company that's a client end user of Salesforce. What are some ways to think about where someone would fit best in that ecosystem? Thanks.
So I want to make sure I'm answering the question clearly. So it's kind of like, should I look for a job within Salesforce? Should I look for a job as a consulting partner, or with a consulting partner, or maybe somewhere else in the ecosystem? Is that kind of the question?
Well, just what are the trade-offs? What do you think, what kind of person suits, which kind of environment, what kind of skills, that kind of thing? And I know you're walking a particular piece of those, but I expect, I suspect given your exposure across those, you probably got some good insights.
Yeah, so let's start with what Salesforce is. I mean, they're a 30,000 person organization. So they need sales reps, they need accountants, they need marketers, they need operations people, they need janitors, they need literally every job you can possibly hire for. They're primarily based in like the big hubs, San Francisco, Indianapolis, like big areas where they need to bring in a lot of talent. Things have changed with COVID where people are more remote, but I mean, they've got thousands and thousands of jobs available. Go apply for one there. If you want to work for a company that pays well, gives really good perks, and is a leader in the space, they're on track to be a Fortune 100 company, go work for Salesforce. Coming from working in small teams, can't stand large bureaucracies. That's not for me. So you got to think about that. Some people love that. They love the benefits and what comes from that structure. I don't do that. Then there are consulting partners, and they run the gamut from, you've got Deloitte, which is another 50,000 person company, or two dudes with a laptop trying to sell a Salesforce implementation, right? And everything in between. So if you went to go get a couple Salesforce certifications, you could go get your first customer tomorrow. Totally possible to do. We were getting our early customers on Upwork. So if you ever heard of Upwork, people would say, I need Salesforce help how to configure this. And we would just go say, hey, we're a company in the US, we can do this for you. And we get business that way. Word of mouth, referrals, that's how we kind of grew. So, you know, if you're thinking about transition, I'm going to look at this through the lens of transitioning out of the military. So I'm coming out of the military. I'd recommend get a degree from college. That's oftentimes kind of a non-starter for a lot of these companies. Let's assume you've got a degree in literally anything. You work for Salesforce, big Fortune 100 company, go work for Deloitte, another Fortune 100 company. Then there are companies that are tech companies that are building products on top of Salesforce. I really like that because you're getting into tech, but it's like a pretty stable space, not just some brand new technology that no one's ever heard of. They're building tech on top of something that's really solid. So there's tons of opportunity there. And those companies are hiring for everything. Again, accountants, finance people, sales people, operations, everything. So it's like, I mean, this ecosystem, we're talking about like 20 million people are going to be tied into it. Think of how quickly that's growing too. There's a lot of new jobs being added in here. So if you're going to get a degree in anything, you're going to be able to find a job in the Salesforce ecosystem.
Thanks again, Kyle.
Yeah, sure thing.
Hey, Kyle, Fred Soul here. I was just, do you guys so you implement Salesforce and then do you do like consulting follow-on? Is that kind of the structure for?
Yeah. So our customers get brought to us by Salesforce and they're like, we don't know what to do. So the first step is we need to consult them through the process of like, this is how you should think about using Salesforce. Like, you need this, don't do that. Let's do this, let's do that. Let's build a project plan over the next 3 months to 2 years to get this done and break it down into smaller chunks. You know, from there, we actually go pull the levers on behalf of our customers. So we go in and get it all dialed in for them. And then we go, okay, let's take a look. What do you need next? Let's adjust, let's change. Because what we find is that, you know, with any tool that people are receiving, the more they use it, the more they recognize they need it to change, right? We pitch against companies like Deloitte all the time. And, you know, the big consulting partners, they tend to want to structure their deals in a very specific way. They want you to sign a 1-year engagement for $1 million, pay them up front. They want to do as little work as possible and then peace out. We structure our business on the other hand, where we work with our customers month to month. So they come on with us, we're working with them every month. They can cancel anytime. So that it really becomes incumbent upon us to provide value to them. So we really focus on what are their needs, what are they looking to accomplish, let's do that, and then move on to the next problem. If there are no problems, awesome, you should transition out. That's a sign we succeeded with you. For a bigger consulting firm, that's like, oh shit, we just lost this $1 million deal is a problem. So we kind of think about it differently, but there's a million players in the ecosystem. You can find anyone that kind of fits your kind of expectations there, I suppose.
So mine's a little bit of a different lane for this. I'm just coming into a new company. I'll be starting in a couple months, and they use Salesforce exclusively. Where does one start to even just get a little bit of a leg up in this kind of lull that I have before I start working end of July?
Yeah, what's your role going to be there?
I'm going to be an account manager for federal sales. Yeah.
Killer. Okay. So my understanding of the way I think of account managers is the company's already sold the deal. They need someone to manage the customers, make sure they're successful, they're getting what they need, their product works, they're happy, they're paying their bills, all that stuff. You as an account manager will be entering information into Salesforce. So you're going to have an opportunity tied to you to renew this customer and check in and make sure that they're happy. Where I don't think you need to go become an administrator. I think that that's probably not the need for you. But going through some of the basic administrative courses that Salesforce offers, which are free, will help you understand, because you're going to sit down and be like, I don't know what the difference between a lead and a contact is. What is an account versus an opportunity? So going through some of those, the trailheads, they have a lot of them, so you can go pick and choose. You don't need any of the technical architect trailheads, just ignore those. Go through the basic ones so that when you show up, you're like, I know where I'm looking, what I'm looking at. I know that what accounts mean. I know what contacts mean. I know kind of how they're related. You're going to be in the 99th percentile of people who come into Salesforce, because most people are like, I don't even know how to use Excel, much less this other tool that's very specific. So I'd just go to this Google Salesforce military trailhead, sign up there and go through a couple of their trailheads, and then hit me up if you're like, hey, how do I learn about this? I'll kick you some more
Awesome.
information.
Yeah, I was using HubSpot for a couple of months, and even the terminology is very different between the two platforms.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
Yeah.
kind of lost in the sauce.
Yeah, and if you know HubSpot, that's an advantage. Like you understand conceptually how they work, but it's like if I hand you an iPhone and an Android phone, you're gonna be like, these are different. Like where I click is different. The icons look different. I don't even know what to think, how to think about this. It's good just to have that familiarity. It's like, okay, I kind of get how Salesforce's UI looks, and so that'll be helpful. So I'd go check out their trailheads.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. These are easy. I thought you guys would have really hard questions.
Hey, Kyle, I got a question for you. Are there smaller companies that kind of hire a Salesforce administrator or Salesforce, programming whiz that stays on and is organic to their company? So instead of working and showing up at the offices of Salesforce, they're kind of within that own company as a Salesforce administrator?
Yeah, for sure. So my first job out of college is I was a sales rep effectively. They moved me into a Salesforce administrator role. We oftentimes help companies because their Salesforce administrator is either overwhelmed with requests because there's a million things you can do. They don't have the expertise. They're like a generic Salesforce administrator, but they don't know how to build or code. So we come in and augment them. So yes, the answer is yes, 100%. We recommend there's a point where a company needs to bring their Salesforce administrator in-house. You need context for what the business operational goals are. You need to help prioritize. You might need to manage more Salesforce administrators. Like there's a ton of needs that happen because like, it's not just like, hey, set it and forget it. You're going to build out some basic functionality for the sales team to close deals and the account managers to renew business. But then finance wants to tie in invoicing with Salesforce, and then marketing wants to tie in marketing programs here. And we want to track it all in one place and build reports and dashboards, and they're always fluid and dynamic. You want a person internal who's got context for what the business is looking to accomplish, not a consultant who's going to just come fix your problem and go away. So there are, like when I was saying that there are, thousands of Salesforce jobs available, that's for internal jobs at companies. They're hiring to have a dedicated person internally who just thinks about Salesforce all day.
Hey, Kyle. No, the brief was very informative, and congrats on your success with it. How long does it take an individual? I'm transitioning right now after I'm retiring at the end of the year. How long would it take to get up to speed on all the training and process and become somewhat knowledgeable about Salesforce so you're also marketable?
Yeah, well, congrats on transitioning out. It's exciting for you. We've had people who, we've hired people who started with I just transitioned out of the military. I've never even heard of Salesforce to they're doing their first project with us in 6 to 9 months. Self-training all through Salesforce Trailhead. They've got all the certifications they need for us to be happy to give them a job. So if you go on Salesforce Military and you go get your first certification, you could do it in 3 to 4 months. You will have companies that will hire you as soon as you get that done. They'll be happy to bring you on. They may be kind of a crappy company that's large that just wants a lot of administrators. They're a huge consulting company. If you go beyond that and start getting architect certifications and more technology focused ones, the sky's the limit. People will be dying to hire you even without tons of experience because you've got a lot of that basic foundation of Salesforce. If you go get 3 certifications, I'll give you a job because we're looking for talented Salesforce personnel there as well. It's just hard to find. And one of the good things is Salesforce looks for companies that have lots of certifications among their team. So they look at the ratio of this company has 50 employees and 50 certifications. This company has 25 employees and only 2 certifications. We're going with the other one because they're more certified, they're more experienced, and also these certifications cost $2 to $5 grand. So Salesforce is making money off of this process. So they want to encourage that. We're selfishly hiring veterans because those certifications are free for us now, or their spouses as well. So that's important too. So if you've got a partner who's looking to get a job in tech or in Salesforce in space, push into Salesforce Military and they can get those certifications as well. But to answer your question briefly, you could in 6 to 9 months be 100% employed with plenty of certifications and just continue educating yourself. You'll only become more valuable. One of our guys on our team, he had 1 certification when he first started. He's been here 2 years and he's got 15 right now. He could, if he went to another company, make 150K, no problem. So there's plenty of demand for folks like that.
And how many certifications are there? You mentioned if you had 3, is it any 3 certifications with Salesforce, or how many are they
they've got a lot.
specific?
No, so they start with like admin 101, very basic, like how to basically administer Salesforce. And admin 201, and they've got technical architect path with 4 certifications, and they've got solution architect path with another 5 certifications, and they're all over the place. They range the gamut from like how to create a user in Salesforce as part of the certification program to like how to write code that integrates with Salesforce and ties into their APIs if you want to nerd out on that. So it's wide open. The trailhead literally lets you pick a path that is interesting to you, then you can get the certifications along those paths.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, Salesforce Military Trailhead, you said? Just Google that?
Just Google that. It'll be first thing that comes up. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the folks that run Salesforce Military, they're super nice. You can hit them up with questions. They'll give you vouchers for certifications. If you make a mistake and you fail certification, they'll just give you another one. They're like very helpful. And so I've worked with them pretty closely. They're great. So they're super helpful.
What's your favorite dialer for Salesforce?
I hate cold calling personally, so I hate all dialers, mostly because I don't like cold calling. But a dialer for Salesforce. So, back when I was like a sales rep, there were very few dialers for Salesforce. Now there's every tool, like it's become easier and easier. If I had to pick one, it would depend on who you use for your telephone. Some companies use like Five9, or there's a million dialers out there. I'm not the person that could tell you.
I've used Five9. Five9 is pretty good because it integrates with all the dashboards and things like that inside Tableau or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that. You brought up painting yourself into a corner. I've seen people purchase dialers and applications that don't like connect through Salesforce. And what's your recommendation with that? Do you have to become qualified now on those applications too to recommend them?
Do I need to become that to recommend to you guys, or does like
no,
a Salesforce administrator need to get certified on a tool?
Yeah. Do you guys plan on getting certified in some tools that you like to recommend to customers, or?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So we do a lot of implementations of a tool called Outreach.io. They're growing like mad up in the Seattle area. So we do tons of those. We've got people that are certified in HubSpot and Pardot and Marketo, and those are all just tools that kind of touch Salesforce. They don't matter necessarily. Our perspective is that we are agnostic to whatever tool is right for you as a business. So we don't just want to be certified in Marketo and we just do Marketo certifications. We're business operations people. So if you were our customer, you're like, hey, Kyle, we need a marketing tool for X. We'd be like, well, here's the landscape. We've done implementations for 7 of the 10. We'll solve any of them. What do you actually need? Which ones are solving your problem? We partner with Salesforce and we're in their ecosystem. So Salesforce will bring a deal to us. And the Salesforce rep is really trying to get this closed because they get paid on it. So we kind of help them close the deal. But the reality is our customer is our customer. The ones that come to us are the ones we help. So like oftentimes Salesforce will say, hey, you need to buy this product called CPQ. We go straight to the customer. We go, you guys don't need CPQ. That's not going to help you in this situation. It's not needed where you are today. So in our mind, it's like we focus on helping our customers specifically. So if they came to us and said, hey, what dialer do you recommend? I'd say go pull your sales team, ask them which ones everybody loves, and go pick that one. Because if everyone wants to use it, that's probably the one you should use. Whatever we recommend is always going to be wrong to some extent. So you should pick the one that you like are comfortable with, or whoever gives you the best price. Honestly, they're all kind of, it's a commodity oftentimes at this point. Which one's the cheapest that has the features that you want, and we'll put it in place for you.
Got it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of folks think of the tool is what fixes it. It's like running shoes don't make me run fast. It's my practice of running that makes me run faster, right? That's how you get healthy. And so in our mind, it's like the tools don't really matter. They kind of all do the same thing to an extent. It's like how it's applied. Did you put it in well? Did you paint yourself into a corner? Did you make some mistakes? Are you enabling and training your team to do this stuff? Because if you don't train them, they don't know how to use it. That's a way bigger problem than just, was it product A versus product B? Because there's so much parity in the products these days that that's less of a concern in my perspective. Anyways.
Got it.
Yeah. The product companies would tell you like, no, our product's way better for X, Y, and Z reasons, but they're biased, I suppose.
So you're kind of a deal outside of Salesforce. The customer negotiates with you on its own.
Right on.
But you're kind of like like professional services almost? Somebody sells Salesforce and then, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So my co-founders built relationships with like 75 sales reps at Salesforce. So any of those 75 people, when they close a deal and their customer doesn't have internal Salesforce expertise, they go, hey, I'm looping in Kicksaw. They've done 10 implementations for my customers. I trust them. So then we come in and we negotiate a deal with the customer to help them close a deal with Salesforce. So the sales rep's happy at Salesforce because they got to win. The customer gets implemented well. And when they implement well, they buy more Salesforce product. So the Salesforce rep is like, wow, you're helping me sell more product. And guess what? I'm kicking you more business because all of the deals we pass to you do way better than the ones we pass to this partner or that partner. So they're looking for those commonalities, and we're getting a lot of business through that because we do good implementations. Try to.
Got it. Yeah, I've been at 3 sales teams, and 2 of them have had like really kind of weird, not great Salesforce implementations. So what you're saying is right on point.
Yeah. It's hard because you got to think about most Salesforce admins are self-taught. They're just struggling through trying to read tutorials on how to do stuff. It's really hard. We're lucky as a consulting firm is that, you know, if a company wants to stand up Salesforce, you may have an administrator who's like literally never done it before. We've done it like 600 times. So it's way easier for us to get this thing knocked out. We just know what to think about. We know how to make it simple. We know what questions to ask. And we can tell when a request comes from a customer is like, you're about to make a mistake. We're going to make sure you don't make that mistake because we've done it before. We don't want you to go through that. So we're kind of leading them through that process. But most sales reps or people who use Salesforce, account managers are included, are like, I hate Salesforce. It sucks. It's hard to use. There's way too many fields. It's slow. It's just lame. Our perspective is like, we can make it work well, but you've got to kind of give us the opportunity to do it. So you can make anything work terrible or work poorly, but you know, if you've got a good partner, they should be able to set you up for success. But people hate entering data. It sucks. Like no one wants to do it. But if you're a sales rep and an insight was discovered that helped you close a deal for $1 million way faster than I ever would have, like I'm sure shit going to start using Salesforce more to identify those types of things. And we want to help companies identify that. And like, you know, a tool should be not forefront of your mind. That doesn't help you close deals. It's like, if anything, it's just a mechanism to track, but let's get it out of the way so your team can focus. And most of the problems are Salesforce is real buggy and slow. And so it just slows people down. It grinds them and they just can't actually focus on doing their job.
So Kyle, is there a flat fee or percentage of every job that you have with the customer that you have to basically kick back or give to Salesforce for allowing them to basically say, hey, my employees are qualified with all your tools, all your skills to work for a customer that I've now negotiated a price with?
Good question. So the way our agreements are structured with Salesforce is that we're a consulting partner. I believe we pay them a flat fee of like $5,000 a year. And that gets us through the door. At that point, it's up to us to build relationships with the account executives to get them to pass us business. We negotiate all of our agreements completely independently of Salesforce. So we work with customer X and they say, we want to do this and this and this. We're like, great, that's a $100,000 implementation over 3 months. Let's plan it out. Salesforce has no context for that. So we get to work completely independently, but we focus on that relationship with Salesforce. So Salesforce has built a really great ecosystem because if you think of it, Salesforce doesn't want to do implementations. They want to be a software vendor, right? The margins for software are super high. The margins for consulting are pretty thin. So Salesforce wants to sell 1 million deals and pay almost nothing. For consulting firms, it's like, I got to staff up a whole team. I got to train them on how to do this. It's harder to do. Not harder, it's different. So Salesforce doesn't want to be in the implementation space. They just want to be a platform and you can do what you want to do, but they want to remove themselves from it. So they charge a nominal fee to keep people out. Sorry.
So all your employees that are going to work for a customer are using Salesforce software. That is what will be implemented. That is how Salesforce is making their money off of those jobs.
Right on. Yeah, our customers use Salesforce. And so Salesforce, so to give context for the price of Salesforce, let's say you started a company today and you had 10 employees. You would pay Salesforce $150 per employee per month for them to use the system. It's like, that's a bunch of money. That adds up over a year or a decade. And what happens if you get 500 employees? That's a ton of money. It's a major investment. And a lot of companies, like they don't have any talent, they literally throw the money away because it's just wasted. And so that's where we think we can come in and you can put a little bit more investment and we'll get it really humming and dialed in, and then we'll step away and let you run with it. And then call us when you need more help and we'll jump back in. So from Salesforce's perspective, if you got 50 licenses every month, that's $5,000 a month for them. But if you cancel because you're unhappy, they just lost that money and they can't get it back. So their Salesforce is very incented for you to have a good experience. So they want to find the partners that help you implement it well.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, thanks. Yep.
Yeah, sure thing.
Do you see any disruptors in the field right now? I know Salesforce, you said, as a majority, but I've heard some different companies like claiming different things.
What have you heard?
I heard some AI driven company. Oh man, I gotta think of it. But they were basically, their pitch was like, hey, CRM shouldn't run your company. You should run your CRM or something. But
yeah, there is so the biggest players in space are Salesforce. Oracle's got some garbage product that nobody likes. HubSpot is considered a CRM. They're typically for, I'm a company that gets lots of inbound leads. So I put out content, a bunch of people sign up for the product. I'm trying to think of a good one. Think of something you'd sign up for $4.99 a month or something like that, right? You don't need a product where your sales reps are selling outbound. You just need people to sign up and maybe email market to them. That's what HubSpot's for. Outreach.io, the company I was talking about in Seattle, they just took on $100 million in funding. They're considered a unicorn, which means they're worth over $1 billion. They're trying to edge into Salesforce. But to put in perspective, Salesforce is like a $100 billion company. So it's like they got a ways to go. So they're eating into that margin because they're building specifically tools for fast growing tech companies that sell outbound, right? I call into Nike and I get the VP of marketing to commit to $1 million deal. It's a very specific way of selling, and Outreach is focused on that kind of group of people who do outbound email marketing from a person to a person, not a business to a group of 30,000 people email lists. It's like, I'm trying to sell to Fred. So Outreach is kind of taking that space and trying to expand it. They're trying to build an ecosystem around them. It's hard to do because Salesforce is this gigantic whale that it's like, how do you pull, like, think of it this way. Apple's got every app that you could ever want, right? You got Netflix and Pandora and Spotify. They've all got iPhone apps. If you go create a phone tomorrow, how do you get Netflix to build an app for your phone? It's like, why would they invest that time into you? They've got this giant player here. Same goes for CRMs. There's companies trying to come on board, but they don't have the ecosystem around them of supporting applications to help. So it's hard.
Got it.
But plenty of companies are trying to chip away at that problem. I think.
Have you do you have any experience with Groove?
I know of it. I'm very familiar with the brand. I haven't ever interacted with their product, so I couldn't speak to it all. What do you know about it?
I've been using it. It's the first time. I've used it for about a month, but it sets up custom like outreach flows. But the one thing is it's hard to interact with your Salesforce. So like, for example, somebody doesn't answer a call, logs a note, but if I have a bad number, I haven't figured out how it does it get rid of that data, or am I going to use that later? Is that contact going to re-come up? So it's kind of interesting, but it makes it easy to burn through calls and emails.
Yeah. And there are lots of companies that are standing up as CRMs or kind of like a CRM, and they're trying to solve a specific business case, right? Like there are plenty of companies that are like, I have 10 sales reps. I just want them to burn through this list of contacts and cold call 1,000 a day. So there are CRMs that do that super, super, super well. Salesforce isn't crazy good at that. They're good at everything that may be out there. So there's, if you have a very niche use case, one of those tools is going to be great for you. If you're like, hey, we have a lot of broad uses, you're going to start to hit limits. Like you're going to not be able to be as flexible within Groove as you can within Salesforce. So it works well at a certain point, but oftentimes companies outgrow it. They're like, well, I want to start tying in product purchases or invoicing into our CRM. It's like, well, it doesn't quite do that. It helps you kind of close a deal, but it doesn't tie into product sold and things like that. That's where a tool like Salesforce is much more broad, but they don't go so deep in any one niche necessarily.
I guess I'll just keep
sending them.
Yeah, because I got a bunch. I mean, I've had 3 different Salesforce types that I've used, and the first one was before Lightning, so that was super fun. I never clicked save, and it would delete all my data that I just added in the fields. But can you talk about like launching the company or any struggles you might have had when you did that?
Yeah, so Kicksaw, I'll use that as an example. It was me and a buddy essentially. So he's in Toronto and I'm in Bend, Oregon. We'd never met each other. He was a customer of mine and wanted to quit his job and create some side hustle. So he started working for me. And so, you know, the hardest part is, how do you get your first customer? How do you get anyone to ever trust you for the very first time when you're trying to start a company? That's the hardest thing. And we found that we were lucky to have a good network of people who we'd worked with who trusted us. We were good Salesforce experts at our former companies. So people who we'd worked with, who worked at other companies, knew about us as relationships that we had. So LinkedIn is a really powerful tool. Connect to people that you've worked with, lean on them as much as you can. That was like getting through the first hurdle. It was like, how do you get your first 5 customers? Then once you get your first 5 customers, how do you start like scaling? And what we found was there's a limit to what 1 or 2 people can do in a given day. There's just a limit to how much time you have. So we started hiring people that were very junior and giving them basic administrative tasks. Clean up this Excel file, create a basic field in Salesforce, just give them all the garbage, ticky-tacky stuff we didn't want to do so we could focus on like strategic stuff with the customer. Then it's like they start moving up, hire someone below them and start handing them, it's like crawl, walk, run, just like anything, right? You can't run until you can walk, can't walk until you can crawl. And we had to figure out how to do that. Where companies struggle is they try to sprint right out of the gates. Like you've got to go through some real basic things for a while before you understand it enough to hand it off to somebody else. And my perspective is like, if I learn it, I can communicate it to another person. If I can train them, I can train them on how to train somebody else. And if you can kind of build that the analogy I use is like spinning plates. I'm spinning a bunch of plates. Now I got to show this person how to spin plates. And I got to show them how to show people how to spin plates. And I got to show that person how to show a person. So it kind of just keeps growing from there. So yeah, crawl, walk, run. Whenever I try to get ahead of myself, make a mistake. I'm interested to hear everybody's background. I don't know anything about anybody other than you guys have questions about Salesforce. Lisa, what's your background? How are you connected to Elite Meet?
I'm a PSYOP veteran,
cool.
active duty. Also worked, my last duty was down in Homestead doing the SOC South. And I left active duty, still a reservist. So I still teach officers through the course and make people cry. It's where I get my, little pleasures in life.
There you go.
And now I work for a Fortune 500 PR firm. And I actually got pulled into the Salesforce when they were doing the expansion, because I think I am the only veteran in my agency. I keep looking for the other unicorns. I know I'm the only soft vet, and I'm definitely, and within my business practice within the agency, I'm definitely the only veteran. And so I get tasked I get pulled in, or my name gets floated around a lot for, oh, hey, you messed up, and that's an Air Force uniform, not an Army uniform, and the client's not happy. I know somebody who can fix this for you. So I become an oversight for a lot of stuff. And with the Salesforce, we're working with some of their new hires. They've been on a general officer hiring spree from the logistics and contracting side of the house, Air Force, one Army, and some Marine Corps to help them build into the DoD, but they're still struggling. Even with the ones they hired, a lot of them just don't have the knowledge of the interconnectivity of the systems to talk to DoD audiences. And they're also trying to talk to other contractors that supply DoD. So they're trying to reach into that piece of the bubble too. But again, there's a lack of understanding. That's kind of why I actually kind of thought that's where you were. That was the whole purpose of you coming, was you were recruiting for that side of the house. I was very curious.
Yeah, sorry to let you down.
No, still very, I sign up for everything because I'm still new to this, but the words MBA give me hives. I'm a little bit more on the PR side. I'm data analytics heavy is what I do, but So yeah, that's me, and that's why I know some stuff about it in a weird way. But it was I do want to know the rest of it, because even when we ask Salesforce, what do you do? They have a hard. You're one of the better people to articulate what Salesforce does compared to
appreciate that.
people within the organization where we're like, so what do you do?
Mm-hmm. The problem, I appreciate that. The problem is Salesforce folks have never had to implement it. They don't know how to even think about it. They're just like, I do this tiny thing in this gigantic bureaucracy. They don't understand how they fit into the bigger picture. And in my mind, I've just been in the trenches with clients, like taking this tool and getting it to work for them. Like I've just been like hand wringing it all the time. So like I've got context in that sense. So like there's a bunch of strategic things I probably couldn't describe well, but appreciate the kind words either way. Colin, what about you, man?
I'm still active duty Navy OD, but I'm getting out in about a year.
Cool.
So honestly, just trying to learn what the real world's like, just to know what a little bit more about the lay of the land, see the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, and what I would say is, like, having been a veteran from the soft community who transitioned out, like I just remember going to college and being like, there's nobody like me. I was 22 years old. I'd been on 4 deployments. I'm like, there's 18-year-old kids showing up late to class, and I was like grinding me. So the transition was hard. Like, and I didn't find people I could relate to. Even when I got into tech, it was like a bunch of 23-year-olds who went to Berkeley who, like, I just don't have anything in common with them. So it was hard to find people like that. I was lucky to come across some people who'd been and had similar backgrounds. One of my best friends that I was in Ranger Battalion with, he works kind of in tech. So we've got a few people there, but it's like really critical to find somebody to align with, because it's just going to feel like you're on an island with people with just such different experience than you are. And it's kind of frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely identified with what you said earlier about not wanting to work in a big bureaucratic system. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I'm trying to transition. But then, of course, it's hard when you're looking at like career opportunities. You're like, oh, like a lot of like what the known entities are other big organizations. I mean, they're not billion-person organizations like DoD, but they're still big.
Yeah, it's my thought process with creating companies. I wanted to create the company I would want to work for. I don't want to work for some massive bureaucracy. I want to work for a place that pays well, that gives tons of flexibility, that's like does interesting work. So I've been fortunate to be able to do that, trying to attract people like that. And so if you got a year, you could have 4 certifications under your belt, and I'd be happy to line you up with a job if you're coming out of the military with that and start getting you on projects. So tons of opportunity there.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, what's your background, man?
So former submariner, hauled around a couple SEALs in my day, but just retired in August as a joint military planner after the submarining days. But in any case, I'm working for a company that supports DARPA contracts, and we're doing an application of natural language processing, machine learning, cloud native compute. So I got some technical program management, and I chased a bunch of certification stuff just in my transition prep during COVID, because that was looking a little crazy. But my main interest in Salesforce was as a bridge to start to learn integrated business operations and a little bit of sales piece of it, because I'm very private sector oriented, and I still kind of I'm holding my nose. Really like the company I'm with, but it's still DoD work, and I'm going, I'd rather just kind of finish jumping into the deep end. And I thought Salesforce would be a good way to teach myself a bunch of stuff, and I really liked how you pointed out the nexus of consulting and problem solving, leveraging some Salesforce pieces, and I've got to think about the tech pieces you mentioned, because I wasn't really thinking in terms of Salesforce's technology application, but I can kind of start to picture some of the bolt-on applications for a company like mine, and how does it connect in with the technology industry. So I really appreciate you pointing out those couple things.
Yeah, for sure, man. Appreciate it. Josh, what about you, man?
Yeah, I'm Air Force Tech, PJ Tech, border toilet. Getting ready to retire. I've been doing this pretty much my whole career, 9 deployments. And so I never really wanted to get into the tech realm, but I've been taking every opportunity, listening to every kind of info session. I just got, I actually have an interview with Microsoft next week, going through the launch code program where they teach you how to code and all that stuff with a guaranteed offer from Microsoft. But kind of like you were saying, that's that big corporation. I don't know. One, I didn't really want to move yet, but they're mainly hiring me because of my TS and CI Poly So like you said, it's a big ticket in, and I want to leverage on that. But so that got me looking into it a little bit more on the whole tech side. And I'm not looking for that next job. I'm more looking for my next career, what I want to do. And I did want to do a 180 and get away from the military just a little bit, see what else out there in the corporate sector. So I think tech is it's very interesting right now. So I'm just asking. Yeah.
I mean, I know a bunch of people who work and have worked at Microsoft and they love it. So it's a great company. And I mean, at the worst case scenario, they get you into the industry. The hardest part is getting your foot in the door. Once you've got that, everything opens up. 6 months in, you're going to be getting hit up by recruiters like, do you want to come work here? Do you want to come work here? So it's like, it's always that very first one it's like very unclear. How do I go from no experience to some? It's that 0 to 1 that is hard. Once you get past that, everything's going to open up. Because one, you've probably been successful with everything your whole life. You're going to figure out how to do it. It's just, how do I get people to trust me and take a chance on someone without this specific experience? They're kind of taking a chance on your TS clearances. Like, yeah, let's bring this guy in. But once you get in, it's like, you can navigate within Microsoft into something that's interesting, or say, screw Microsoft, I want to go work for this startup that's in Seattle, or whatever you want to do. There's hardest part's getting in. Once you can get in, you're good to go.
No, and that's what I love about Microsoft, or this opportunity where they also teach you, where they take you and do the on-the-job training, all that stuff. A lot of companies want all those certifications already, and I don't blame them because it costs a lot of money, right? So those mega corporations can't do that, can't bring you on, can't give you the basic training, set you up for success, like you said,
And so they're going to teach you how to code?
Say again?
They're going to teach you how to code?
They're going to teach us mainly C#. Is the big one, and then Python and some other stuff. But yeah, and I have zero idea about any of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, when I first started doing Salesforce stuff, I had to learn how to code because, so the example that I was running into is I had like a 100 megabyte Excel file. And I literally couldn't even open it on my computer. You'd like double click it and your computer would crash because it's way too big. It was like too much data. And I needed to clean the data up and load it into Salesforce. I couldn't do it. There was no mechanism for it. So I had to learn to code using Python to open the CSV file, clean it up, and then push it to Salesforce. That completely changed the trajectory of my career. Once I learned how to code, that was one of the very first tasks I did. But, you know, I remember someone was explaining to me, like, if there's anything you're doing that's repetitive or annoying, you should learn how to automate it using code. So when I lived in the Bay Area, I was commuting a long ways. I was working a lot. So you'd come home and my then girlfriend, now wife, dinner was a pain in the ass. And so there was this company called Munchery who would deliver food right to your house. You just throw it in the oven for 10 minutes, you're good to go. Well, the meals were like 15, 20 bucks. And so they would do these flash sales for $3. You could get whatever people weren't buying for $3. So I built a script using Python that would check their website every minute. And if there's a flash sale, I got a text message and I go log in and I order dinner for $6 instead of 40.
That's
and
awesome.
I was like, God damn, this is valuable. I just created value. I learned how to, I coded for 2 hours and I built this script that just pays for my dinner every day. It's like, this is really fulfilling. And then I started finding other ways of coding that I was like, damn, this is fun. It's like, you get to solve a real problem. Just like it's a keyboard and then text editor and it runs forever. And I just loved that I could do that. I could automate some stuff. So I'm a big supporter of learning to code. I think that it's a superpower because the challenge is people who grew up knowing how to code, they can't describe to a beginner how to get through it or like how to think about it because it's so intuitive. I'm learning to play guitar. It's the same thing. People who've been playing music their whole lives, they can't even describe what it's like to be a beginner because they just don't know. And I got to be a beginner at 25 years old in coding and 30 years old in playing guitar. So I'm like, learning how to communicate with other beginners that feels like a superpower too. So I definitely recommend learning to code.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome story there. And I may use that for my interview next week, why I'm passionate about coding, getting into coding.
Yeah, for sure. It's just solving problems, man. Yeah, it's fun.
Awesome.
Fred, what's your background?
Hey, so I was a former SWIC. I've been out about 2 years, worked a couple different sales jobs. Like you said, 6 months, had success and got recruited. My last role was PayPal. Now I'm with a no code, a startup that does pretty much uses no code to automate those annoying tasks that everyone wants to automate, called Decisions. Yeah.
Awesome. And do you run sales there?
Yeah. Well, I'm an account executive, enterprise. So yeah.
Thanks, man.
A lot of experience with Salesforce. Definitely done Trailhead. I haven't gotten a certification, but I tried it out initially when I got into sales. But
Mhm.
I might look into it after this because to learn how to use it better. PayPal had a great
Yeah.
implementation of Salesforce. So,
Yeah,
but some of the other ones not so good.
it's hit or miss.
But
The second application that I started to code with was as a sales rep. I was a sales development rep, and I was managing a bunch of SDRs. And one of the challenges was all these contacts in our databases were changing jobs all the time. And like you'd have this person you're trying to call, but they're not there anymore. You email them and the email bounce. Like, damn it! If I check their LinkedIn, I found it. But it was, all the 75 reps would just be on LinkedIn all day, just cross-checking data. I was like, this is insane that all my team is just on LinkedIn doing research all day. So I built a script that would check LinkedIn and check our data and compare it. And if it was different, it would create a notification. We'd use that as an opportunity to reach out saying, hey, Fred, congrats on the new job. You want to have a conversation about blah, blah, blah. And it was just like game changer, totally changed the trajectory of our sales process. So again, I used code to build a real basic script that helped add value. I turned that into a company. So that's another company that I run, but it's fun to build automation. Like it seems kind of lame to do, but when you do it, you're like, this is really, when someone shows up and is like, this solved a real problem for me, it's really gratifying, even if it doesn't solve your own problem. So
yeah, I saw that online and I ran into that in my first company like all the time where I was calling people, he doesn't work here or I don't work there. And I still run into it. So that's a great problem.
Yeah.
What tool did you start coding on? So you said Python. Did you have like a program that you learned with?
Oh, good question. I went on Khan Academy and I watched some of their basic Python stuff. I wouldn't go there. That was not great. I was like really struggling. What is it? Code Academy. I need to follow up with it. It's been a long time. I want to say Code Academy. They teach you the syntax, really basic stuff. And then there's a website called Udemy, or not Udemy. It's been so long. I cannot believe I don't remember this offhand. I'll think about it and I'll follow up with an email. That's got this. But I mean, there's a billion training tutorials out there that are great. And yeah, I want to say it was Udemy, but yeah, it's like a superpower. You're speaking this language that other people don't understand. And when you can talk to a developer, you kind of like, I know 10% how to code, an engineer knows 100%, but I can speak that 10% that nobody else can. And it just helps build tons of street cred. So it's like, it's an arrow in your quiver. Just like when you talk to someone in the military, you're like, yeah, I was on a SWIC team. They're like, hot damn, that's cool. Most people don't know how to do that. They don't know what that's like. So it's like, if you just got a little bit, it'll help you stand out in a big way.
Yeah, that's definitely something, doing no code. I don't know how to code. So trying to talk to IT people about it, like this is what that means. And it's definitely, so I could learn something from that for sure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Amy, so you're going to become an account manager here soon?
Yeah, so I'm coming off 20 years in the Air Force, and 15 I slummed it over at JSOC Maine. I've been on the compound. I feel like I have a residency there. So I did a lot of different IT things, and I never really truly enjoyed the active IT, but I did like helping people. So that's how I kind of landed with something with sales. So I ended up getting a job with Samsung a couple weeks ago, and still finishing up a little bit of my active duty time doing a skill bridge right now. So I'm doing some interning with a company called Sales Platoon, and I start my terminal in July and start at Samsung at the end of the month. So yeah, I heard they're very Salesforce heavy. So this was a very timely engagement to be a part of. So I appreciate your time a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congrats on the new gig and the transition out. It's big time. Anything else I can help with? No? All right, might be a good time to wrap it up then. It's getting late. Appreciate everybody's time. So you can find me on LinkedIn, just search for Kyle Morris, SifData or Kicksaw. I'm oftentimes the first Kyle Morris, but or Kyle@kicksaw.com. Just shoot me an email anytime. Happy to support as much as I can. Whatever I can do, don't hesitate to reach out.